While modern Jewish sovereignty is often defined by military strength and secure borders, its historical legal summit is the reinstitution of the Great Sanhedrin, a Supreme Court of 71 ordained judges. Without this court, the nation remains legally incomplete. A long-standing constitutional crisis currently prevents the reestablishment of this central governing body. The crisis began 2 millennia ago. The Roman Empire targeted the constitutional framework of Judean sovereignty, executing a strategic dismantling of its civil institutions. Jewish civil law requires a Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin. Its judges must hold Semikhah, an unbroken person-to-person ordination tracing back to Moses. The Romans exploited this, systematically executing those holding Semikhah, aiming to shatter the transmission chain. Without an unbroken line of ordained judges, the legal authority to convene a Sanhedrin ceased to exist. This fracture created a 2,000-year constitutional dead end. Without a functioning Supreme Court, the return of Jewish civil sovereignty was legally blocked under standard operating rules. This creates a strict legal paradox for any modern sovereign Jewish state. To function as a complete legal entity, the state must seat a Sanhedrin. However, you cannot seat a Sanhedrin unless its members hold pre-existing Semikhah. The catch-22 is absolute. Ordaining a new judge requires a ceremony performed by an already ordained judge. Because of the Roman fracture, the line of succession is empty. Solving this paradox requires a return to first principles. We must examine the framework that authorized the very first judge, before any historical chain existed. We trace this legal framework back to its bedrock starting point, Moses establishing the law at the Horeb Covenant at Mount Sinai. Moses' jurisdiction was legally ratified by the public mutual consent of the entire governed nation. The people explicitly agreed to accept his rulings. This public consent functions as the non-negotiable variable for all subsequent judicial authority in Jewish civil law. Therefore, the person-to-person chain of Semikhah is simply a historical proxy. It carries the public's initial consent forward through time. The legal authority of Semikhah derives from the mutual consent of the governed, a principle that dictates how the broken chain can be repaired. For centuries, the law remained exiled and fractured, with no clear path to restore the court. However, Maimonides codified a legal failsafe. This clause states that if all the sages in the land of Israel agree to appoint and ordain judges, those judges are officially ordained. Achieving a total consensus of the sages replicates the exact foundational conditions of the mutual consent established at Sinai. The supreme authority remains intact, held in trust by the collective consent of the people until the scholars unite to activate it. This mechanism bypasses the need for an existing ordained judge. It replaces a broken chronological timeline with a complete, unbroken geographic agreement. Maimonides delivered a flawless legal proof, but because it required the physical presence of scholars in the land, the formula remained theoretical for centuries. That theory ended with the physical return to the land. Currently, the law is highly fractured, and there is no universally recognized central assembly of sages. The next step toward revival is the resurrection of the Yarchei Kallah, the ancient months of assembly in modern Jerusalem. Operating based on precedents from the ancient academies in Babylon, the Yarchei Kallah is a highly organized, recurring summit where scholars from across the nation gather to align on complex jurisprudence. To meet the legal threshold for success, this future Kallah must grow to represent the clear majority of scholars in Israel. Establishing this Kallah provides the practical framework for the nation's legal governance. This legitimacy requires years of organic growth to gain enough public trust to sustain a national mandate. The Yarchei Kallah operates as a deliberate, slow-moving constitutional convention, actively earning the demographic trust of the public. Once this future Kallah achieves undeniable national recognition, it wields the legal power of the people's consent. By unanimous consensus, the assembly will collectively ordain their top contributors as Dayanim Samuchim, or ordained judges. This collective ordination resolves the legal fracture left by the Romans, establishing the functional core of the reinstituted Great Sanhedrin. The Yarchei Kallah satisfies Maimonides' constitutional formula, shifting from a theoretical gathering into a legally binding sovereign entity. Upon securing total consensus, the assembly takes immediate legal action, the generation of new Semikhah. Utilizing its collective legal mandate, the Unified Assembly officially ordains its leading jurists. They are elevated to the status of Dayanim Semukim, fully ordained judges. Possessing ordained Dayanim triggers an immediate consequence. The strict legal requirement to seat the 71-judge Great Sanhedrin is instantly fulfilled. The Roman fracture is definitively cured through strict jurisprudential logic. The severed transmission chain is irrelevant because the original bedrock of Sinai, mutual consent, has been successfully replicated. This internal jurisprudential victory forces a collision with the external geopolitical reality of the modern state of Israel. Currently, the state is governed by a secular legislative framework and parliamentary apparatus. This introduces a profound and unprecedented constitutional tension. A legally valid Supreme Court now exists under Jewish civil law, yet the state machinery continues to operate under a transitional, secular system. To complete the restoration of full sovereignty, the political state and the general public must formally recognize and submit to the authority of this Sanhedrin. This action represents a modern recontracting of the ancient Sinai covenant, bridging the rigorous logic of ancient jurisprudence with the execution of modern statecraft. The restoration of this court provides the legal framework necessary for the state to move toward full national sovereignty. Once the Supreme Court is restored by the people, how will the modern state formally recontract the ancient covenant and ratify the Torah as its civil constitution?